they get it done. And that's something to be proud of. We also need to get the government to get the trash also. And, but I just commend those citizens that got the bag, got the thing. I mean, I was just ecstatic about that. And I appreciate you all bringing this up. Another issue I want to address is I was talking with Dan yesterday about there's all these trash cans from ECUA still everywhere, all around the county. And that, it just looks like trash. And so Dan's currently, he told me yesterday he's working on that. We're trying to get a solution to that. Dan, can you update on the latest on that issue?
I think I asked Andrew Hill, our solid waste manager, is on the video conference. He can probably has the latest information from ECUA.
Thank you. That's all. No further comment, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Sam Mullins, 5922 Allentown Road. I was hoping I could get a clarification from the board as well as your representative from Waste Pro. When they dropped off, they have two cans, one marked recycle, one marked household garbage. And the other day I noticed when they were picking up my trash, I had put my yard signs, political signs, and boxes that I'd broken down into recyclable. And in my household trash, and I'd set both of them out by the roadside. When the truck picked them up, it dumped them both in the same part of the truck. I mean, so that's where my question is.
Commissioner Colton.
Sam, what color are your cans?
I've got a brown one and a gray one.
You don't have a recycle can then.
It says recyclable on the can, though.
Read it again, Sam.
Okay.
It says yard waste and I think garbage.
It said recycle on the can. On my can, it did say recycle on the can.
It should be a blue can.
No, it's brown and a light gray, kind of almost white.
We got your answer coming, Sam. Just one second if you give them the mic.
I'd be happy to clarify that for you. The gray can is for the garbage. The brown can is actually what we're calling a utility can. It was available for, it was initially thought of to be yard waste. Then it became the additional second can, so there is nothing on, there are no markings other than Waste Pro on those cans. And the blue carts are the only ones that are available for recycling, which is a separate subscription service.
Awesome. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. You good, Sam? Good. All right. Ms. Gano?
Debbie Gano. I know there's nothing that I'm going to be able to get resolved on this, but I just want to voice my opposition to being mandated to having one sole option for my trash pickup. I know this was a decision that was made a while back to go with a single source for trash pickup. But that violates all of my rights for free market decision on who gives me the best service for the best price. It also provides competition if you have another option for trash pickup to keep the prices down. The decision to go sole source with Waste Pro means that I have to pay whatever price they set. I have gone from getting 2 days a week trash pickup. Now, did I fill my trash cans every time, 2 days a week? Not necessarily, but I might have had something in those trash cans that would really stink if it doesn't get picked up earlier rather than later. Especially in the south end, you know, you've got, for example, fish waste, shrimp waste, things that really stink when they sit in your trash can for an extended period of time. Do I necessarily, with just my husband and I in a home, fill those trash cans up even twice a week? No, or, you know, once a week? No, but I have now been mandated to go with a company who is only going to pick up once a week. You know, what do I do with my trash that stinks because now it attracts the bears and everything else? You know, this is ridiculous. We live in America. I should have the option and the choice to go with whomever I want to pick up my trash because I either get a better service for the cost or I get what I am looking for and not what I'm mandated to receive. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Deb. Any other discussion on this topic? If not, I think we can get rid of number 5 real quick so we can get Chris back to work. Good morning, Chris.
Chris Phillips, Code Enforcement Director. Over the past year and a half, we've had several meetings here with the board. Many of those meetings involve citizens, and consistently throughout those meetings, the citizens have mentioned that our fine structure is pretty weak in respect to many of the items that we deal with daily. I know that we four have had conversations, because you all have been here longer, and we're attending those meetings about how we can work with those fines to potentially increase those going forward. I know that we hear from the citizens and we hear on Facebook, and I get a lot of emails when we fine someone $120 or $300 for an erosion control violation, about how the thought process is that is just simply the cost of doing business going forward for some of these violators. I'd like to point out that we have the backup here. That is the ordinance as it is presented currently in the black. The red is what I added as a draft. This is a very dirty draft, if you will. It has not been wordsmithed by the legal team yet, so there will definitely be changes to come as far as the draft going forward. What we're here today to do is to just simply talk about how you all want to go forward with the fine structure that we have. As most of you know, and for the general public's information, our process includes receiving or observing a complaint, and we reach out right away to the potential violator and let them know what their violation is and how they can go forward to remedy that violation. Within that initial contact, that courtesy letter, there is usually anywhere from a 15, I've even given a year on some retention pond maintenance, a time of correction. So we're very lenient with allowing things to be corrected as best we can be. If the violator is working with us, we work with them. As long as they are making progress, we continue to go along until we see that they are no longer making progress. As a last resort, we issue a notice of violation. And that is the fine that is related to the fine structure that you see here. Typically on those NOVs, as we call them, they have a time of correction built into that as well. And I can't tell you how many NOVs that we cancel throughout the year because the violator finally gets the message and they finally carry through and take care of the issue as it was described to them. They also the violator finally gets the message and they finally carry through and take care of the issue as it was described to them. They also have an option to appeal if they feel that they have been fined an error. They can go before our special magistrate and plead their case. We've had several of those since I've been appointed to code enforcement. We've not lost any. With one of our problems down in the south end. So if we get to that 67,000 properties, and let's just assume that those 278 NOVs were individual for a different property over time, it's only of the 984 cases, that's only 1.4% of the cases per the amount of property that we have, meaning that 98.5% of the people are doing what they're supposed to do. So the NOVs that we write, we do everything we can not to write that NOV. But sometimes we have to. And when we have to, again, you all have heard from the citizens, and so have I, that those fines need to have a little bit of teeth. I've looked at other of our surrounding counties. Everybody's fine structure is different, but I feel like ours is very close to those. For instance, Okaloosa County has a $500 litter fine. Ours would go to $150. So we're not going way out of bounds with this at all. We're just trying to make these more appropriate for the first time. I think some of these fines have been around for much longer than the ordinance from 2014. So review what we've submitted. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer questions. But I think the citizens and you all have asked me to look at this, and well, here we are.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Chris, for bringing this up. I would like to say that I am staunchly opposed to this. The reason why is because we have a history that I've noticed firsthand of selective enforcement in this county. And it happened during my primary race. I remember that it was the first time ever that my signs, I worked really hard to put signs at the polling precincts. It's kind of a normal thing. And I remember Commissioner Parker did too during that day. And all our signs were removed, just during all of them, That's the first time that's ever happened. At the same time, there was code enforcement cars driving by. There were lane signs, lane lynchard signs were in the median, and I'm not saying that Lane did that. We have a lot of supporters, that put out stuff, and supporters put out my stuff. But what I don't like is selective enforcement, and what I don't like is, and I'll say this in the future. I'm an incumbent now. If somebody runs against me, I want him to be treated fairly. And I think it's a concern that, and I've seen multiple situations where, remember the flag issue, and where, certain businesses were targeted and fined, for the flags, and so, if things were fair and I could trust fairness, if I could trust it, I could see, well, this could be a benefit. But right now, I have a lot of concerns based on what I've been hearing from business owners, what I've seen firsthand myself, and the selective enforcement aspect. The whole entire, during the general election, during all the elections after the primary, nobody was ordered to take down the signs in front of the precincts. It just happened right the day before the primary. And that was targeted at me and Commissioner Parker, and I also think Commissioner Wright. And that's got to end. And until I feel like I could trust the enforcement aspects of it, I can't support this.
Anyone else? Commissioner Cole?
Thank you. Chris, thanks for what you guys do. I know it's a thankless job out there, and I'm glad we moved to uniforms and a little more, I guess, ability to get respect out there than you had in the past. I support that 100%. The signage is on the vehicles, and our, they're not enforcement people, they're enforcement officers. Sure. And they need to be, because you get people that are cordial about being reminded something needs to be done, and you get people that are perfect donkeys about it, because don't want to use other words.
You don't have to tell me, sir.
I understand. And I just want to make sure we're we remain respectful of business people, because there's a lot on the line out there, and I know interpretation of their signage or flags, and I think you've been lenient. There's some that go over the top and some that just need reminded, hey, that shouldn't be out there. I don't want to hit them with any kind of raise in a fine. My concern more so is the people that don't want to maintain their properties, whether it be a house that needs completely raised because it's, terrible, somebody's front yard. I've told you before, what goes on in your backyard behind the privacy fence, I'm probably as bad as the next one for how much junk I have back there, but, one man's junk's another man's treasure. But the appearance as you're driving by, we don't need to be out looking behind fences.
And we don't do that.
I know. And I'm just putting this out there so people know how you feel, how I feel. But have respect for your neighbor, whether it be me or anybody in this audience. The person that lives next to you should have that respect. Their front yard shouldn't look like a salvage yard. Or even to a degree of, we just talked about trash cans. Leaving your trash can out there by the road for 4 or 5 days. Your trash is emptied that morning, that afternoon, when you get home from work, pull your can back in your yard, stuff like that. Just putting it out there to the whole county, not just my district or any other district here or community, to the incorporated areas. We're trying to raise the bar in our county and raise the way our county appears. To people that may be traveling through, people we're bringing here that may want to invest in our community. So just thanks for what you guys do, and I'd be encouraged to maybe raise some of those fines where we see necessary, but I won't support raising any fines to individual business community members. Like you said, this is a rough draft, so let's work through it. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Pope. Commissioner Wright.
Chris, thanks for being here. Quick question for you. The fine limitations, are they limited by state statute?
So we are only allowed to issue up to a $500 fine for the initial fine, and that is per day. Now, we, again, in our leniency, I don't know that we have ever fined anyone per day, but we have the ability to compound that fine via judgment through the magistrate's office. There is a $600 allowance for a subsequent fine, so if you get someone who is essentially not doing what they're supposed to do, has a complete and utter disregard for the ordinances of the county, we use that one quite often because that one has the most teeth.
Sure.
So there is some guidance via state statute, and again, we have worked with the legal team on that as we go forward to develop this revision, if we do.
Okay, so the only question in that case that I have is under Section 3, obviously erosion control, that's something that can be corrected, right? So if if your officers see an erosion issue, someone didn't have a silt fence laid up properly or it's failing, that can be corrected. But I guess the question I really have is an uncorrectable offense, including but not limited to land clearing without a permit. So if somebody just clears their land without a permit, $500 and that's the cost of doing business. So I'm just trying to understand, I can just clear my land and no big deal, I'll just pay the $500. It's cheaper than paying somebody else to do clear land.
Correct. We have a comment here.
I can let you know basically what Section 162.09 provides. As was stated, there's a 250 per day cap on the fine for first violations. It's 500 per day for repeat violations, and for an irreversible or an irreparable harm, the cap is $5,000 per violation, not per day. With the supermajority vote, there is the option to increase these fine amounts above that. The state caps with a supermajority vote are $1,000 per day for first violation, $5,000 per day for a repeat violation, and $15,000 per violation for an irreparable violation.
Thank you.
So to further address the erosion control portion here, so in my view, with my engineering background, an erosion control violation is absolutely preventable. I mean, you put in your silt fence, you put in your erosion control like you should, it's preventable. However, if that silt and mud gets into the bay, the creeks, the wetlands, or so forth, and causes, for lack of a better word, a mess in the woods, we need to be able to fine these people per day but to get it cleaned up, because if they don't, and Commissioner Cole and I are, you know, ankle deep in one over off near the airport, whereas we currently do not have the teeth to fine them beyond the initial $300 for that initial offense. We're done. We have to depend on DEP to clean that up from that point forward and to force that cleanup, or it never gets cleaned up. And even beyond that, the only teeth that you all really have in the case of a subdivision is to hold the final plat, should you choose to. So there's a lot of things working in here. You know, I want to make sure everyone understands that we didn't just pick these numbers out of the sky. I mean, there's a lot of great guidance here, and I know Evan Rosenthal, I've depended on him heavily with the legal group to help get these into a fashion that you all can approve and we can go forward on.
And I appreciate that, Chris. And your folks do generally a good job. You know, you mentioned erosion control. Our Public Works Director and myself were doing a site visit and just happened to come across a lot that had been cleared that had virtually no erosion control, and frankly was exacerbating a problem, a drainage problem that was already there in the neighborhood.
Sure.
And then this person came in and cleared it and creating a bigger issue, and frankly getting mud and clay out directly into East Bay or Santa Rosa or Escambia Bay. My main concern was, you know, people just going rogue, you know, clearing lots without a permit, and basically, you know, what can we do about that? That's something that I know myself. I know Commissioner Calkins heard that on the zoning board, and you know, it's something that has been a problem in the past. And don't get me wrong, I'm not looking to run around and just go fine people a bunch of money just for the sake of, you know, creating revenue or anything. Yeah. I'm just concerned about those situations that are, you know, creating an environmental hazard and are basically one person doing something at the expense of all the other citizens.
And I hope I've made it abundantly clear that we do not just go around looking to issue fines. I mean, out of 1,000 cases, just shy of 300, and many of these will repeat NOVs. I don't know for sure, but I have to say our businesses, they do a good job. I mean, most of the time when we call one of them, if they have, you know, a retention pond issue, or, you know, a required fence is blown down, or they've, you know, don't have a screen around their dumpster, they take care of it. And I want to emphasize, I'm a little disappointed that my department has been characterized as doing selective enforcement, because that is absolutely not what we're about. We don't pinpoint one person over the other. We don't pinpoint one candidate over the, I mean, we just don't do that. And I, you know, perhaps, you know, Commissioner Calkins and I, we need to discuss a little later about that, but I think that we have gone out of our way to change that stereotype with the county. We spent, at the primary election and the general election, a week picking up signs that were illegally placed in the right-of-way, and the county attorney at the time determined that those signs could not be permanently placed on county property at polling locations. So we picked them up. It's just that simple. I didn't single Mr. Calkins out. I certainly never singled Sam out, nor any of the rest of you. We didn't leave any that we didn't, because we thought we might want to vote for them. We don't think like that. We have a job to do, and we do the job as even-handedly and consistently as possible. That is my commitment to you and the citizens of the county. So with that, we'll discuss further later, maybe.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris, one thing you said that I wanted to clarify. There's something to the degree of there's no reason not to have the proper fencing up for environmental protection, and I agree with that, but what, an occasion comes along like Hurricane Sally, and they had it in place, and then all of a sudden it's halfway down the street.
Sure. Obviously, in a catastrophic event, we're going to use our brain. We have committed that to you back when we did our land development, our 9-hour-long land development code workshop here. We're going to use our brain. If we get 18 inches of rain in a day, that's more than any erosion control can be designed to handle. However, the thunderstorms that happened last night, 2 inches of rain, we ought to be able to handle that. So we have people that are trained in stormwater pollution prevention. They have those certificates. If they have questions, they call me. I've been in engineering for this year 22 years. So we don't go out hunting fines to be issued during hurricanes and that sort of thing. We're just not that group.
And we've talked about that before. Mr. Chairman, I just want it on record, because, there's people out there that want to throw darts.
Definitely.
Say, oh, well, those guys were out here the next day fining me because, a fence blew over. And I assured them that wasn't the case. Now, a week later, with other storms coming, I agree. You guys need to lean on them.
I mean, if they have a breach during a small thunder shower, that's a problem. And they know better. Many times, longtime builders and construction companies in this county, they know what the NPDES permits required. They know what the county requires. It's not new. But again, if we have an event like we had back on September 16th, we're not going to issue fines for erosion control when we have, people with 4 feet of water in their house. It was just not going to happen. But a week later, if it happens again and they've had time to recover and we've made contact with them, if they don't square things away and we have an inch of rain and some of the mud gets away from them, that's a problem. Sure.
Commissioner Cox.
Yeah, question for the attorney. What is the supermajority vote about? Is that with our board? And what consists of a supermajority vote? Is that?
That would be a majority plus one of this board to increase those fine amounts.
So that's only related to those high fines?
You could go up to those maximum limits on any fines that this board had a supermajority will to impose.
Okay. Now, when it comes to like what Commissioner Wright said, I have some agreements in the sense of, clear cutting and those kind of things. Littering, for instance, that should be as high as we can make it. Littering is not good. We need a clean county. So, but what I'm concerned about is, and we will have a conversation, later on, but I do feel there is some selective enforcement because I saw it firsthand. And, but I concede that we can make some progress on some issues with these fines.
Chris, I just want to say, I hope my fellow commissioners take the opportunity to go ride around with your inspectors as I've done and you invited me to, because it's eye-opening. I will tell you, you do not selectively enforce. There's things that people want people slammed for, and your inspectors go out of their way to address the issue with the person, explain to them the solutions, and give them the time to do that. And I truly appreciate that and your entire staff for what they do. Yes, there are cases. I applaud your efforts. There was an area down south, they wanted to do a test case of an area that had major problems. They sent letters to each individual homeowner, and I think you had probably a 95+%, oh, I didn't realize that. I'm going to clean this up. And they called and talked to you. So that's the kind of enforcement that goes unheard of. Unfortunately, my personal philosophy, if I don't want to pay a fine, I don't break the law. I don't want to pay a traffic ticket. I don't give that deputy an opportunity to give me that opportunity to pay a traffic ticket. So I truly appreciate your efforts. The way to file a code enforcement, I'll do a public service announcement, is on our webpage. It's quicker than calling me or one of these commissioners. You go online, put it in, put photos in. It can't be anonymous. That's one thing we took away. So we don't have the neighbor disputes or anything, and I think it's working great. And it goes right to the top of there, and they are out there taking a look at it, and their goal is to get it resolved, not fine people. They want to see the issues resolved. So keep doing what you're doing, Chris. I applaud this effort. We raised fines in the animal ordinance that frankly people would go, I'll roll the dice, and if I get caught, I'll pay $20, rather than I don't want to do that because I don't want to pay that fine. So I fully support your efforts with these fines and look forward to working with you more.
Thank you. If I could, just
Please.
one other thing, just to kind of update you on some illegal dumping cases we had. We have had, since Hurricane Sally, illegal dumping has been amazing, and not in a good way. Thankfully, the Public Works group and Mark has got all of the debris cleanup done, and that has cut our calls down with illegal dumping down tremendously. We did find a tree service that was collecting and dumping on the right of way, and we had to put a stop to that. And we have noticed over recent weeks some kind of prime locations where there has been some illegal dumping, whether that be construction debris or, I mean, we've had a load of shingles dumped out. And I just want to update you all on a couple of things. We have a environmental deputy that we work with very closely. And when we present good concrete evidence to that deputy, the violator gets to go before a judge. There's no questions asked. It's not if you clean it up, well, I have to go. They go before a judge. And we have means and methods to collect evidence that I'm not going to go into. But we have been very successful with this initiative. And if anyone's listening that feels like they want to go down the street in Holly by the Sea where there's nobody and dump a bunch of trash out, we're going to dig through that trash. And we're probably going to find you. And then you get to go before the judge and explain why you thought it was appropriate to dump garbage on the side of a road in Santa Rosa County. One group from Alabama decided it would be appropriate to dump shingles at the toll booth at the Garcon Point Bridge. And they got to come back and clean them up and go before the judge because there's cameras all over the place there. So we just urge the citizens to utilize the cans that we have for the trash service. If you don't have trash service, we have a landfill. Minimum charge is $10. I took a mattress the other day. It was my $10 mattress that needed to be thrown away because I didn't, if that had been dumped on the side of the road, it would have cost the county anywhere from $60 to $150 to go get it. $10. It's a small price to pay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chris, and let us know what you need. We appreciate your efforts. Carmen, you want to speak on this issue real quick before we take a break?
Yes, sir, thank you. Carmen Reynolds, Navarre. I do believe that these fines need to be increased, and I'm speaking on behalf of the citizens. I watched as lots were clear-cut in Whispering Pines, no silt fencing put up, only to find out that they didn't even have permits. To my knowledge, there were no fines levied on that. But these instances happen time and time again, and the only hammer is the ability to fine if they are levied. So that is the personal example I would like to leave, and to also explain that selective enforcement, I am not sure if you peel back the onion, Commissioner Calkins, whether that is in fact true. I would suggest a workshop with the commissioners and the code enforcement people just to get that out. But I've been harping for 2 years up here and mentioning that if we are going to encourage our citizens to vote, we need to facilitate that. I understand there's a 100-foot limit between the precinct and the closest sign, but things happen on the day leading up to and including the voting day, which seems to be out of control, and there needs to be a sit-down to decide how that policy is going to be established from here on in. That's where you're getting the selective enforcement idea, and I think that can be worked out. Finally, it's very disgruntling to see that some of these egregious actions are not followed up with fines at all, and this is the only hammer the county has. So the train is stopped at the station. The citizens need this sprout. The impact fee train is stopped at the station up at the court while the county and the school district are being sued over the methodology to arrive at the educational impact fees. Therefore, we're not really discussing the county impact fees until that falls out, but a member of this body is already planting the seed for cutting any impact fees in half, and there's no mode of control on these things that are happening with regard to erosion control and some of the other things that are happening that shouldn't be happening without an increase in these fines. And finally, from the South County, I can only assume that you erudite members have determined it's better not to have a facility to dump things in the South. People are not knowledgeable, nor are they willing to drive up to Milton and pay that fee. So therefore, last week, the largest couch you can imagine, the largest circular couch, was dumped on Whispering Pines Boulevard. And I thought to myself, I will mention this to you gentlemen and see whether we're doing the right thing to prevent that in the South. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you, Carmen. I want to respond real quick. I'm willing to forgive what happened in the past regarding our code enforcement and so on and so forth. I just want to make clear, and starting now, selective enforcement won't be tolerated. That's what I'm trying to get out. And thank you. That's all.
Thanks. One, Tom.
Mr. Chairman, Tom Beckman from Navarre. A couple of quick things. First, when you want to talk about finding people, it's really unfortunate that it's not going to be a short topic. So it might have been nice that we would be in break by now, but Commissioner Calkins, you opened your comments by stating that you're vehemently opposed to this. That's a quote. Would you help us understand in code enforcement and fining for code violations exactly what you're vehemently opposed to?
What my concerns lie in, it has to do with selective enforcement. And I wanted to make a point clear that we need to stop. I have that perception, and that means lots of other folks do. We need to stop that perception. And I'm willing to listen to my board. I think Commissioner Wright brought up some good points. I also heard about the littering. I think we need to do that. I'm just one board member. If I get 2 votes, then that's what matters. But I am opposed as written right now. So yes.
As written right now, does it say selectively enforce?
That's my opinion, and what I want to happen is that to stop.
Okay, I think everybody can agree that selective enforcement is not a good idea. In fact, in some cases, I think it's illegal. But anybody who's done code or covenant enforcement knows how difficult it is to uniformly enforce the rules across the board. I'm sure our good sheriff would stand up here and give us all a powerful lesson on how to do discretionary enforcement, which he certainly has the authority to do. We'd like to point to that guy over there who was speeding by us as we were pulled over for our ticket, Mr. Chairman. And that stuff doesn't play, So selective enforcement is intolerable, while at the same point, prudent and diligent enforcement is vital to the survival of the county. Would you not agree?
I agree, and I would like to say also, I'm here to listen to the citizens. I could change my mind on the whole thing if y'all come up here and convince me and talk to me, you know, after the meeting and so on and so forth, truth is, I work for you, and I will listen. And so I could change my mind, especially if the majority of the folks, if this is what they want. But I've heard folks not want this. And so I have to make a determination on moving forward on what we're doing. Right now, the good news is this is not an action item today. This is a discussion item. But I'm all ears.
Okay, and I really don't want to stand here and debate it with you. That's unfair to everybody else. But if we can agree that selective enforcement is important, you certainly do agree that enforcement of code provisions in the county is vital. Is that a yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Beckman. Mr. Kennedy.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Kennedy, Navarre. Gentlemen, really my comment is, Mr. Chris, who is standing in front of you, his job is uphold the ordinance that are written. This gentleman is not out here writing them and doing them, pulling them out of the air. These are the ordinance that you hold him accountable to following. These are also the ordinance that are well documented, as we also have a lawyer on. They're going to go through the whole process. My concern is some of the comments on, we don't want to do anything, any fines against business owners, or we don't want to do this, or we don't. The ordinance are defined. I am asking you, you champion the ordinance and you support your staff, because what I just heard was almost, you were giving that staff and that man as if it's a bad thing. We ask him, we the people ask you to come up with ordinance to keep us within that 98% range of following rules, right? And then that's his job. And I know you say, hey, it's great, but what I'm asking you, do not champion someone who doesn't like their fine. They can come and follow the process just like everybody else does. They don't like it, they can go in front of their magistrate and they can do their thing. You champion our ordinance and you support your staff doing it. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Jerry Cooey, Milton, Florida. Chris, I want to tell you, I appreciate you and your staff. Heck, I myself found a note on my windshield one time. I wasn't happy about it, but we went down, we had a conversation about it, and we moved on. Here's where we are in America today. Remember Chris's number, 1.2% of the people is the problem. That's how it is everywhere. We really wouldn't need a sheriff's department except for 1.2% of the people, or code enforcement, or any laws for that matter. However, let me make it abundantly clear, that 1.2% of the population that continues to thumb their nose at the good citizens of Santa Rosa County, when a speeding ticket was $20, I had a lead foot. When it's $175, I will pay attention, okay? And I will submit to this board that one $10,000 fine over knowingly and willingly filling the wetlands in, or any number of things that Chris is dealing with every day of his life, will correct the problem. $300 doesn't correct the problem. I got $300. Most anybody's got $300. $500 a day. And how about you get a pair of tweezers and go pick your mud out of our wetland also? It's accumulative problems here that have to be corrected. I wish nobody got a fine. However, the vast majority of the activities in Santa Rosa County, I applaud members of the building industry. I think there's plenty of them that go above and beyond what they need to do. Our private citizens go above and beyond what they need to do. But that 1.2% is going to have to be taught a lesson. Those are the facts. You've hired Chris. From a personal standpoint, he's too generous in what he does, to be quite honest with you. my job, y'all have to hire somebody to follow me around if I had his job. All right. He treats things with such care and concern and listens to both sides along with his staff to make sure, absolutely sure, that it's not somebody trying to be punitive or not somebody trying to stir a pot. Okay? Trust the man, trust his staff, and those that need the hammer need the hammer. Dearly departed Rodney Rollo used to laugh about something all the time. We have signs all over the place that says fine for littering. And he often wondered, does that mean it's okay to put the trash right there? You know, we have to put the hammer down on the abusers. It's a small number. It's a small number. Set an example. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooey. Chris, I think you have the will of the board, so appreciate that. That concludes that item. Before we get into the last item on well field protection is quarter to 11.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Parker.
Sorry, I'll keep it under a minute. Real quick, again, Chris, thank you for what you do and your staff. May not agree with everything, but I will know Chris is one of the most efficient people with documenting things and getting back. So I wanted to say that before you left. I wanted to address something with this board really just before we get off of it, maybe Dan for future workshop endeavor, something Carmen brought up. I've heard from DOT as well as our previous public works director. I think from what's been conveyed to me, illegal dumping in the south end, specifically District 4, surpasses any other district in the county from what has been conveyed to me historically. And one thought that Carmen brought up about the transfer station, that was far predated me, that decision, but I think that'd be worth looking at in future workshops as far as, I don't know if we own land down there, I don't know if that's something that our enterprise fund could sustain. I know we cut back on the number of hours in the north end, but I think that's worth at least discussion because it's sort of that circle of life when it has to do with littering and all. So it don't even have to be the next workshop, just something in the future. Thank you.
Great point. Thank you, Commissioner Parker. Okay, we will reconvene at 11 a.m. We stand in recess.